Okay, so I'm just gonna continue this video. In the previous video, which is the first part of this video, in that we talk about a little bit about the system information and kernel, and then we mainly talk about the different operating system, the Linux, Unix, and the DBS. I have explained that in detail, so make sure to watch that video first and then come to this part, because that was the first part. This is the second part. Okay, now we will talk about the Linux distribution or distro. So that's after the operating system, Unix, BSD, and the Linux. And just see this, it's like more clear and detailed, so we can understand what is going on and why. So what is Linux distribution or distro? You already know Linux is operating system. Yeah, we do know, we just studied that. It's also open source. So Linux is not a complete usable operating system. So it's just like the core engine, it says over here. So Linux by itself is actually the core engine. It's like not complete usable system. So just give me example what it meant by that is that think of like buying a house. That just, I think instead of this example, this one is much better. So imagine a car engine. That engine alone cannot drive you anywhere. Yeah, that's just the engine. What are you going to do with that? You cannot drive the engine alone. What you need for that engine is you need seats, wheels, a body, and dashboard. So what different company does, like the Toyota, Ford, BMW, they just take the same engine concept and add their own design and seats and make different cars around that engine. Similar cases for the Linux. Linux is just the engine, and to make it usable, what they do is they add the package manager, default software update system, and this. So you can see over here, Linux distribution is complete, finished, playable, and usable version of Linux. So a bunch of people take the Linux engine and add some tool and software needed to actually use it and make a complete usable version of the Linux that we can actually install. So that finished package is called distribution or distro for short. Like a package manager, how you install software and what will be the default software that is pre-installed, and how will these operating system will get updated. And they just also add a bunch of stuff to the desktop, like how will the desktop look like, similar to the Mac operating system. Okay, they just took the free PDS and add beautiful interfaces and stuff and call it a Mac operating system. So over here you can see we have some of the common distribution that uses the Linux kernel. One of which we have is Debian, Ubuntu, Kali Linux, Parrot operating system, and this one Arch Linux. And if I go here, I think you can see, so it just right here it says that Debian is the one that is the most stable one and trusted one, and it's like not run by the any of the company, and instead it run entirely by the volunteers. And many other distribution you can see right here mainly uses this Debian as their foundation. We can see the example of that is the Ubuntu, which is made on top of Debian using the Debian distribution as a foundation, but they just made it more beginner friendly, and this is the company name which maintains the Ubuntu and add things like updates and different stuff. And we have another distribution called Linux that is also made on Debian, but specifically for security professional and ethical hacker. And the Parrot operating system is also like Kali Linux, but like a lighter version. And now we have these two things. So this one is like the commercial one, they have to pay for that and it's only used by the big companies. And this Cent operating system is also, this is one is free but and also used by heavy enterprise environment like bank and government system. Okay, and this one is like, it's like a Linux, but you have to make it yourself. So I think imagine it like car that has no design, just a basic seat, has no design, no roof, just engine and some seat that you can only drive, but they just give you option to modify it however you want. And you can see why it was named Debian, because Ein was the developer name and the Deb was his girlfriend name, so hence it became Debian. And you know what, the thing over here is that they use the Toy Story code name or the character name as a reference to the Debian versions. For the version Debian 9, they just also name it Stretch. I have not watched the Toy Story, but I think it's also a character in the Toy Story. And same is the case for Debian 10 Buster, which is what we will see in our lab. And for Deb 11, they just name it this, 12 this, and the coming one will be named tracks. So hope you get a little bit idea of the distribution or distro of based on the Linux kernel. Oh, and one more thing is that when you find a kernel exploit, it's actually not about the kernel version, because the same kernel version is also used by a different distribution. Because you can see right here, the same version compiled by the Debian will behave differently from the same version packaged by Ubuntu. So what I mean by that is, let me open the paint, and so imagine this is a specific kernel version. Like for example, let me copy this Debian version, this kernel version. Let me copy this and write it here. So imagine we have this kernel version, this, and what I'm trying to say is assume this is specific kernel version, and the same kernel version is being used by the Debian and also the Ubuntu, so or the Kali Linux. So if we find a kernel version that has a vulnerability that we can exploit, we also need to see the distribution name, like is it for the Debian or Kali Linux? Because the same kernel version, if it's used by Debian, I will just type the deb, it might act differently than the same kernel version is used by the Kali. I will type right Kali. So assume this is the kernel version, this, and it's used by this distribution as well as this, and we found out that this kernel has a vulnerability. But what we need to clear is that is it for the Kali Linux distribution or the Debian, because the vulnerability that this kernel version has might be patched by the Debian, and you will not be able to exploit that because it's a different distribution and this is different, and this Kali Linux have not patched it, so it will only work for Kali and not for the Debian. I hope this makes a little bit sense. I hope this makes sense. And even if you don't understand anything, let me know in the comments. I will make sure to answer you. And now what I will do is to end this video, and in the next video, which will be the part of this video, I will talk about the architecture in that video. So I'm just gonna end this video and I will see you in the architecture video. Have a good day.